in my birthday. She's a Motherland activist, board member of the NGO Niñas, Sabias, and Wise Girls, which is our global grant, and she's a certified midwife and instructor with years of involvement in the Midwife Network of Mexico. Carla provides education, culture, and healthcare services based in the ancestral traditions of Mexico. And FYI, yours truly was born in my house, your house, mi casa, su casa, by a midwife. Mind you, she was dragged away from a wedding after a couple of mezcales, but she did a great job, you know? She just dropped me on my head once. Okay, so let's give it up for Carla Castañeda. Vamos a presentarla. Ok. Aquí, cuando estés lista, ya puedes ponerle así.
Sí,
Normalmente era video, pero no sé cómo se le hace.
sí, no te preocupes.
¿Ok?
Sí, perfecto.
Y como si estuvieras comiendo una paleta.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you everybody to be here.
Y aquí te puedes, si te ves aquí, ahí te ven.
Yes. Just want to know if I can do this. Because para moverlo a la derecha izquierda, nada más aquí, ¿verdad?
Moverlo hacia, ay, ¿qué pasó?
¿Verdad? Era video y ya lo muevo. Ok. Ajá.
Ok.
Sí, bueno. Well, thank you, everybody. We do ceremonies. I'm going to read a bit. I wrote it yesterday night, but it's important. And it's important to know why restoring birth as a ceremony can promote health equity. We do ceremonies at important moments in our lives since always. From weddings, graduations, temazcal, funerals, to birthdays and others. Ceremonies support us to gain knowledge, purify our spirits, and honor life. They can be as simple as a small act done with sacred intention or as elaborate as a religious confirmation. So, making a long story short, through the history of humanity, and I want to show you that, birth is a ceremony to introduce new life into this world, acknowledging the passing from the spiritual world into the physical world. And Western medical interventions may not always be appropriate. The birthing journey from pregnancy to postpartum, it's seen in intellectual, intercultural, science as a time of a spiritual initiation for the new mother and for the new being that arrives. Initiations are transitional ceremonies that lead us through a cycle from life to death and rebirth into a new identity. For the first-time mothers, this journey is a profound shift from being a maiden into becoming a mother. And for all mothers, it's a journey of becoming a mother with a new relationship. In the worldview of my culture, the mother is seen as a conduit between the spiritual and physical worlds, and birthing trauma as a meaningful initiation into spiritual adulthood. In fact, in our tradition, we have initiation rites only for young men, because already bleeding and birth itself is considered to be the initiation process naturally built into woman's body. I'd like to show you this in just 2 minutes. I hope you are able to see it. While we have been initiatives to indigenize healthcare, my intervention here with all of you today is intended to provide insights into the ancestral wisdom of the ancient tradition. I will mention now even the human rights frameworks contained in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Sustainable Development Goals. How they allow the incorporation of indigenous birth ceremonies into clinical practice. But what I see today is to touch your hearts and create enough awareness to understand that ceremony has been the way we have lived as human beings throughout the time. This, I will love to make a short exercise with everybody. What if I would say that the way we take our first breath influences the rest of our lives? A question that seems simple, but is profound if we analyze it closely. So take a moment with me and with this mother to connect. Go deep into yourself and try to bring back to this moment the day you arrived into your life, like this baby. The day you become human, the day of your birthday. Try to remember for a moment the baby you were. Remember how during these 9 months of alchemical miracle, water was your best ally. Water that contain the same elements of the periodic table that make up the water of the oceans, just different quantities. The womb, I'm going to show you another. The womb, a place without gravity, with an average temperature of 36.5 degrees in semi-darkness, a place where the water muffles the sound with the external frequencies, where the sense of taste is developed by the mother's food, where floating is the norm. Try to imagine your own arrival, where you were at that moment, who was the hands that bring you into this world, who was the transition between the water world and the gravity world. Newborns, when arrive, feel everything and experience everything 40 times more intensely than we do. The sound, the light, the change of temperature, the smells around everybody, the gravity itself. It takes 2 to 4 hours to a scuba diver who descends to 100 meters deep to compensate his body from the air pressure. And it takes 48 hours from a newborn who have lived 9 months in the water to transition and get used into life itself. So again, what if the way we take our first breath affects the rest of our life? In a review of the visceral pain, Dr. Sengupta published in 2009 the effects produced by the separation of the newborns from its placenta immediately after being born and in the postpartum period, which with a high level of evidence by several publications document that such separation produces a permanent alteration in the neuronal nociceptive pathways, with a consequent visceral hyperalgesia in later adult life. This would be a mechanism that explains chronic pain in adults. So yes, At the end, we have all done it, that first breath. And yet, culturally, still is filled with fear and anxiety about that transition. And of course, yes, it's a big deal to go from the fetal circulation to the neonatal circulation, but it's sacred. The spiritual aspect of this transition has always fascinated me, and I'm grateful for my inner core and for all the beings who have taught me patience and grace during this time, including my own children. When we outlook patience and the presence of ourselves, being with a newborn, trying to breathe for the first time, we can tune into their life force and energy. Most babies who choose to move more slowly don't come out crying or needing a little help. They are fine. They are preparing, they're intending to come to air, and they are actively doing it. It just may not be at our hurried impatience and adrenaline-fueled speed. This is the mother we have seen before. I'm going to pass it quickly there. The key, of course, is to recognize which babies are not taking these steps. The body of each new being that arrives it gradually, developing the innate ability to recognize regular patterns in the information received through the senses, filtered through the element of water. The key, this opening a soul where the body senses open is the manifest action of condensing the human experience of the being. And for those of us who understand their language, it opens a veil of connection between the here and there. The veil of my job as a partera and a healthcare provider is to care for the surprising choice and work that new beings makes in its period of densification, known as a gestation, for the acquisition of their language, and how this arises in this thirst of union with the outside. If we learn to look closely and to tune into them, we can calmly hold their space for love as they take their first sacred breath, to accept life on this plane and to be held tenderly in whatever way and for as long as they need. This is part of being in the midwife role that is so special and sacred to me. By respecting each baby, we change the world. By not rushing into anything, including cutting off their tree of life, by allowing them to make their first formal decision into this world, to decide themselves when they want to be separated, we change humanity. Imagine coming to the world, to this existence, and being understood and valued in this profound way. The wisdom is within ourselves, and the wisdom is within our babies. Allowing them to do so is a challenge for all of us who are perinatal caregivers. So I would like to say, in behalf of all the midwives in Mexico and around the world, all of us who work in ancestral territories, that the wisdom of midwifery around the world is being diminished, especially in the ancestral midwifery, the one of the ancient tradition, the one that takes care of all the details and subtle bodies beside the physical body. The European Western forms of perinatal and maternal child care have been appropriated by these formal states, and falsely believing that by systematizing and protocolizing physical care, the results would be optimal. In other words, we have been forgotten that we are spiritual beings in a physical and bodily experience. A community and all its relationship and life ways can splinter when foundational healers are deemed irrelevant. It was not so long ago that the parteras, the midwives, and other medicine people were considered gifted by the divinity, connecting those in the community to the healing of their ancestors, to their ecosystem, to the traditional roots, and to themselves. If we imagine the return of birth as a ceremony, as the basis of our ancestral healing ways, babies would be born into an ecosystem of a cultural safety. Although so much of pre-colonial history has been erased, forgotten, and destroyed 500 years ago by the colonizers of this territory, I believe the ancestors of everybody here are whispering, our culture heals us. And it's my overall theory that if so many of you who were born outside of this territory are here today, it's because of a calling from your soul saying, you too are part of this territory. And this wisdom also belongs to you. So returning to the importance of how treating childbirth as a ceremony can promote health, I want to say that multiple publications have shown that the intestinal microbiota plays a decisive role into the defense of our organism against pathogens. The changes in the microbiota produce modifications in the brain physiology, behavior, and cognitive function. Alterations in the microbiota may influence the onset and severity of the nervous system diseases, psychiatric disorders, and neurodegenerative diseases, which I like to call them disharmonies. The new finding, which have been caused so much surprise, indicate that for an adequate brain development and maturation in the newborn, the intestinal microbiota, which is transferred from the mother to the newborn, it's only passed through vaginal delivery in CAL and also in breastfeeding. So this means that being born into the world is a cornerstone of long-term health. Childbirth should not be reduced to a pathological event. And part of my job is to persist crusade against its medicalization. Today, obstetrician had taken control, pushing aside the hands-on experience of parteras and midwives and the personal needs of wishes of the mothers. And furthermore, nobody has listened to the real necessities of the beings that are arriving. Long time ago, it used to be like that. Everybody we were connected to the fountain, and we were deeply interconnected with the beings in the womb. This is what I still do. I'm trying, I'm a listener, I'm a baby whisperer. I talk to them, I know what they need. They talk to me and they pass information that is important for their mothers, for their fathers. So for me, being born is everything, because being born goes beyond a metaphor of life. The revitalization of birth as a ceremony is a strategy to reclaim our humanity and health through sacredness. Since long time ago, not only here in what we call now Mexico, that the correct name is ancient Anahuac, throughout the history of all humans, we have been separated from our ancient cultures, kinship, ceremony, story, narrative of belonging, art, music by dominant systems. As a result of worldwide well-being health were lost. So reimplementation of birth as a ceremony means babies can be born and communities reborn into an ancestral cultural ecology characterized by safety and cultural reclamation of healing. So knowing that women and children play a crucial role in society, investing in improving their overall health and well-being through an ancient way of birth, it is not only the right thing to do, but also builds a stable, peaceful, and healthy societies. Coming here today, it's my personal bet to create a community-rooted foundation, organization, project, something among some of you dedicated to preserving and uplifting the knowledge, dignity, and role of Indigenous midwives and healers. Through our education, advocacy, and support, I can continue working to reclaim traditional birth practices and strengthen Indigenous families and communities. We need here and in all Indigenous territories, re-indigenize healthcare, create spaces for healing and ceremony, and support a future where ancestral wisdom guides the journey of birth and life. Together, today, we can honor the sacred responsibility of Indigenous midwifery and the powerful connections it nurtured. Midwifery is women and children's work. Midwifery is community, and it belongs to everybody. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
But I will pass.
Yeah.
Why is it like that?